Stay tuned until the end because Jeanette and I will pull a card to help you if you're feeling overwhelmed. It will tell you just the first thing, the next thing you have to do to feel better and to get out of that rut. All
That
right, let's do it.
although some topics I've had come up in conversation is a lot to do with time,
Mm-hmm.
our reality and perspective on time and timelines. And because, I like to dabble in like past lives and stuff. So, so that's really the only other thing that I think has been coming up, the past, present, future concepts. So what I guess I could just start by asking you, what are your theories and thoughts on time?
That's a great question. I think time is such a esoteric thing. It's very hard for me to grasp how time doesn't exist from
Mhm.
my human consciousness. It's hard because you see just right, you see the time passing, you see yourself growing older. So it's so mystical to me, this concept of time. And I'm thinking about how we calculate space using time also, like this planet is this many light years, ahead. So we're using time to calculate space, which is also very fascinating to me. So it's just the whole thing is just a big mystical sort of blob in my brain. And I'm sure that once I move to the other side, I will understand everything. So unless maybe, in meditation, maybe
Yeah.
at some point I'll have that sort of nirvana experience of just everything all at once. I'm not there yet, but I understand it, conceptually. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
I like how you mentioned that we estimate space by time,
Mm.
because that's another theory that's very esoteric, is what is space? I mean,
Yeah.
if we really take on that philosophy of oneness and everything is interconnected and we're all connected, then there really is no space as well. So there's no time, there's no space, but yet we're operating in this 3D reality
Hmm.
where we've made this matrix and this concept of space and time just so that we could experience this moment in its fullest. And I feel like slow our perspective down to really embody this moment, right?
Hmm.
So I feel like that is also very interesting that, like you said, when you move beyond, and maybe then you'll grasp it from that perspective, because I think that perspective is a 5D perspective.
Hmm.
Like then we will feel and experience that kind of interconnectedness and oneness, and understand that there is no space. And even in the space, like between my mug and glasses, there's not space. We think of it, we define it as space. Space is a word, but really there's stuff in between.
Hmm.
There's atoms and molecules,
Right.
there's matter, just vibrating on frequencies that are different, vibrations.
Hmm.
So if you really think about it, everything is a frequency, and it's just how fast is it going, how slow is it going, that creates it into matter, into this reality. But yeah, what is there? It might not be any space either. No time, no space.
And space, I think, is also relative because you think about the space at the subatomic level, which between atoms, there's a huge space, right? And so, although from our perspective, you see, so it's all just a matter
Yeah,
of perspective, I think.
relative.
It's
Yeah.
all relative to who you
Mm.
are. And
I read this quote and I love it. It's like every word that we speak,
Mhm.
right? Every word or vibration that comes out is heard across the galaxy in
Mhm.
some star. Like that's how interconnected we really are. We don't feel that we're that big. We feel
Mhm.
that we're individuals and we're so small, and we're just living in this planet. But if you really realize the impact that we have and the interconnectedness that we have to all living things and not living things or all things.
Hmm.
I thought that was so cool to realize that, like, yeah, a star way off on the other side of the galaxy is imprinted, is affected
Hmm.
by what we think and say. Like,
I love
wow.
that. I love that. And
Yeah.
it could be interpreted as extra pressure, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Everything I say or do or think has an impact, but also what a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what you're speaking about makes me think of something that's been on my mind, which I've looked at a lot of different studies lately about Gen Z specifically lacking purpose in life. And they have amongst the highest rates ever of depression, anxiety. Just today I saw it was a crazy stat. Like, well, first of all, around 1 in 2 Gen Z, which were surveyed, it was like between 18 and 24 years old, reported having anxiety on a daily basis. But then it was like 43%, I think, I hope I'm not mistaken, were having panic attacks at least once a month. And a panic attack, if you've ever had one, I mean, those
Yeah.
are really, really not fun. And I cannot, like, I've had 2 or 3 maybe in my whole life. And I've considered myself somebody that was very anxious. So those stats for me are just staggering. And
Yeah.
at the same time, correlating these stats with the fact that they report feeling very lost, having no purpose, not understanding the meaning of it all. For me, it's been fascinating. And just how you say, that we are all connected and we're not just these little, particles living on this sphere floating around in space, right? We matter. And so, what would you say to these young kids really who feel like they don't matter and maybe they don't understand why they're here?
Yeah. That's a pretty crazy statistic. I can I can see how that is so, because we as a society has it's really created this matrix of illusion and separation.
Hmm.
And so we've really, like, especially I want to say in the United States, I think other cultures are still very much traditional and family oriented, but here we've really grown to, like, gain this individualistic mindset and separateness, and so we're losing, I think, tradition, and we're kind of stepping away from history. And the youth right now are kind of in this middle place where, so the past is kind of breaking down. Things are changing so fast, especially in this new age of technology. And I mean, when I was a kid, we still had landline phones.
Hmm.
TVs were the big thing. We didn't have this connectedness with the internet that we do now, but everything was slowed down to very basic communities and towns. And so I feel like the generation now is lost in the middle of this expansion and dissimulation of what was. And so there are core, now I'm big on the educational system
Right.
not being how it should be in this day and age. And so we're not teaching our kids how to get to know themselves, how to know their inner guidance system and awarenesses, how to connect with the spiritual world. So they've lost touch with themselves. They've lost touch with what they are being told that they should be connected to, which is society and history. So they
Hmm.
have nothing to grasp on. And of course, then the pressures of society and the illusions of the glitz and glam and the expectations that they're thinking they have to conform to is throwing them even further from their true self. So of course that's going to create that
Hmm.
anxiety and panic attacks, because one, they don't know how to deal with their five senses reality,
Hmm.
their internal biological system. So we're not taught even how to be, there's no guidebook or manual on how
Right.
to be a human being. But I feel that our generation was in that really good pivotal place where we knew to search for it. We knew there was something else. That's why there's so many life coaches popping up now, and teachers and mentors. And it's like our generation was maybe one of the first couple waves that came in of star seeds or
Light
teachers
workers
and
or. Mhm.
guides. because like we do kind of know, and we knew that there's something more, and so we really pulled for that, but we kind of went through a lot of that stress too. But now we're here just at the right time, at the right place
Mm,
to kind of guide those generations coming in, that I think we are meant to build the new system, the new like educational ways, the new governmental ways for
mhm.
the upcoming generations. I don't want to say it's like all of our responsibility, but
Right.
I think that's what's happening is we're going to start to see like this is not working because the new generations they're not able to handle it. We're just in here at that right moment to be the guides to help them with that. Long story short, I just yeah, I think the system is not built for nourishing the mind, body, soul.
I agree with that. I have to agree with that. And it seems to me, I'm picking up from what you say, it seems to me like right now we're in a sort of pressure cooker where the pressure is at the maximum level. And it's sort of like our generation, you and I are millennials, our generations have sort of deconstructed some of the old ways.
Mm-hmm.
We've ripped some things apart, and now it's just sort of bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
And Gen Z, who now are, early 20s, they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, what do they cling to? They don't know
Yeah.
yet.
So first, yeah, because the right ways are not in place yet.
Mhm.
The old ways are sort of falling. There's social media. There's the addiction to social media.
Mhm.
There's the climate crisis, which they see coming up, and they're like, hey, yo, guys, nobody has
It's the
done
end of the
anything about
world.
this. Yeah. So, right. So they're like, first, it's the end of the world. Second, I'm addicted to my phone. Third, I
Mhm.
have no connection to my mind, body, spirit. Fourth, sort of like the system and the education have not served me at all.
Mhm.
Now what? So it's interesting because I saw myself helping the future generations through my kids. Okay, but
Mhm.
my kids are born, I don't know what the new generation is, but anyway, my son was born in 2017 and my daughter in 2020. So I didn't see that their generation, Gen Z, like I didn't know that they had so many issues, right?
Yeah.
So maybe because I don't watch the news, I don't know, but like
Yeah.
now it just sort of there's so much online about especially men that have a lot of mental health problems and depression problems, young men, and just their whole generation, for lack of a better word, is just sort of in this lost
Mhm.
state. And I feel like I didn't know that, because what we actually hear more in the mainstream, what got to me most was like that they're snowflakes, like how they say they can't keep a job because they don't
Yeah.
want to, because as soon as they get like annoyed with something, they're gonna quit, which I feel
Yeah.
like is like a long swing of the pendulum from 50 years
Yeah.
ago, accepting getting harassed at your job constantly, and then now being like, yeah, I didn't
Holding
like,
boundaries.
right. And now it's just too, I understand that the sort of the pendulum swung maybe too far, but yeah, like that's sort of the only thing that they were known for, it seems like, especially in the
Mhm.
workplace where I used to work. Like, oh my God, these young kids,
Or you hear this entitlement that they're just growing up feeling entitled to everything. And there's some good concepts and good mental perspectives that they hold, that they came in with, that is helping to encourage, I think, the breaking down of the old ways. But there is a lot of pressure on them because they are like trying to stay true to who they are, still in this society that doesn't encourage that and doesn't help them to stay strong in that. So that could, how that could create like that mental breakdown and that
Of course.
fluster and anxiety, because it's just like they're really being, yeah, under the pressure cooker right now.
Yeah,
And
and I can't imagine, like you and me, we growing up, or maybe in our 20s, we saw, reality TV, or like some people that were famous, right? But
mm,
it was like them. It was like Hollywood,
slow
it's
too, like,
us
yeah.
and it's them. But now with social media, it's like any other teenager can make millions of dollars on TikTok. And so I
Yeah.
think that the teenagers now are like, oh, well, I must be doing something wrong with my life because I'm not doing
Yeah.
millions on TikTok.
Yeah, there's that comparison
Oh my
and
God, that would be so much.
expectation, and it is. And even we go through that, but not to the great. greatest scale that I think it's going on now. Like you said, like my son who's 8, he's all like, "Mom, I want to be a YouTuber." That's the thing. That's what they want to be. Is like, I want to be in the limelight. I want to just
Right.
have no privacy and just like everything is out there in the open. And that's great if you use that to be a teacher, to be an
Hmm.
example. But again, then there's no foundations in that. There's nobody to teach them how to really, I think, protect their mind, body, soul. And again, because it's all very new.
Hmm.
So it's something to, yeah, very much watch out for. But expectations are like, I feel, the destroyer of our souls. Because yeah, then you get into the
Yeah.
ego. It's the quickest way to get into the ego, and then
Hmm.
you're
Totally.
compare it to itis, whatever they call it, and then you're also beating yourself up for not being
Totally.
what you think you should be, what others expect you should be. And so then there's that self, like negative talk, self-hate, I mean, it literally creates the opposite of what we should be standing in, which is,
Totally.
you know, self-love and acceptance and unconditional love. It's a difficult place.
Yeah, I can imagine them feeling just not good enough.
Yeah, all
And
the time,
like,
everywhere
how
they go.
terrible.
And with even, and I'm guilty of this, but with the parents being distracted and everyone's distracted, they're not getting nourished at all. They're not getting any attention and helping with their development. So it's like they really are, maybe it's a good thing, but maybe they're really having to learn how to be self-sufficient. But
Hmm.
there's still, I think, needs to be a strong foundation, of core beliefs, core values, or a strong foundation of some kind of fundamental mind, body, soul education.
Yeah. Yeah, because I can only imagine if, for myself, I feel like I didn't really know myself when I was that age, right? And the more, of course, the more I get older, the more I know myself. I know about myself. I know my core values way more than I did. If you had asked me at 18, I'd be like, I don't know, like, what's that? You know? I don't know, go out, party? I don't know,
Yeah.
but I feel like, yeah, it's just they're in that pressure cooker, having these expectations, seeing other people do certain things online, not feeling adequate or good enough, maybe not worthy. And sort of they just don't, like you say, they don't have that foundation because they don't know themselves yet. So that just creates the worst sort of compound.
Yeah.
And from your perspective too, but sort of what would be some of the key things they could, or anybody feeling like that, doesn't have to be a Gen Z, but anybody feeling sort of lost in their ways and maybe just too overwhelmed, what would be the thing that gets them out of that cycle?
Well, I'm going to put a shameless plug here, but
Go
you're just
ahead.
speaking to my 8-day challenge of taking your power back.
Go ahead. Tell us
Sorry,
about that.
shameless plug there. Well, what it's really all about is taking that. I mean, I mentioned how society is, your energy systems, energy vampires. It's about all of that, giving that attention and being disoriented and like not focused on yourself and ungrounded, and taking your power back and realizing, your truth and your full potential. And
Mm.
it is a process. It is something that you have to work on every day. And I think it's kind of a system that I really, maybe someday will be taught around the world to kids. Maybe it will be a foundational exercise. Yeah, reconnecting the mind, body, soul, not disconnecting. Because a lot of we're just, it's almost, if you can imagine all the chakras, disalignment, right? You've got your root chakra going
Right.
after all this sex, or you need money for security, and it's all out of whack. And then you've got your power center, your solar plexus, or it's like you don't feel worthy, you don't even know who you are, you're not connected to your truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then your heart, it's got all this trauma and heartbreak from your childhood or the past. I mean, they're going through all of this. It's almost like desensitizing our energy systems, and we're losing our power and we're getting drained, and it's a lot of energetic stuff, and again, with the minds and beliefs and all that. So I feel like, wouldn't it be great if there was like there was a manual for human beings, like, especially for kids or anyone really. And we put in place these concepts and beliefs and ideas, what reality really is, mixing the physical and spiritual, the science and spirit, and helping them to really understand the truths and not the illusion of our reality. And then not only that, but then we need a system that helps them to reconnect to who they really are by understanding like we teach the five senses in kindergarten or first grade, but we don't teach our spiritual senses, like our five psychic senses, which is
Right.
very much so, just as much as the physical. We all have it. And we just don't use it because we're not taught to, and we're also taught to like put it aside and just say goodbye to it,
Yeah,
disassociate from it. But if we were able to connect to that part of ourselves, that makes us incomplete right there. Not using our internal guidance system, not listening to our
totally.
gut, not knowing how to understand intuition. If you could imagine kids knowing how to do that, our 20s would have probably totally been so much different.
Very, very different.
Because we would have been able to have more of this internal guidance system. And why not? Why don't we have it? Like, it's something that I feel should be in our basic understanding. There's so many basic concepts. But again, the society that we're kind of breaking away from, of course, doesn't want us to know our power. They they can't have us be working our 9 to 5s and
Of course.
wasting all our energy to build their
Agenda.
legacies,
Hmm.
their agenda if we're in our power. So of course that's not going to be. We have to make it part of the system. I think it's learning all of those truths that have been hidden throughout history, that have been discarded, that has gone underground, that has been crucified, that has been burned at the stake. All of those wisdoms
Hmm.
and esoteric truths that we did very much have a part of our daily life and tradition that we don't have in this society now needs to come back. I think it is coming back, but I think that that would help a lot in taking back your power, helping people to just identify with this reality a little bit better and a little bit more grounded.
I agree. That's a powerful work to get to know our psychic senses or energetic body because it is like you say, it is part of our nature. So it's kind of like in biology, in school they teach you about the organs and all that, but they don't teach you about energy, about the interconnected field of all, like nothing of that,
Yeah,
right? And so I also think that would help a lot. Another sort of practical thing I'm thinking about is just disconnecting from the internet for a while.
everything is balance, like
Yeah, at
everything.
least I don't know, do evenings with no phone, like something. I have a friend too. She teaches in, well, Quebec is different, but anyway, she teaches to 18-year-olds basically. And she says that a lot of them, if not most of the class, is completely addicted to their phones. And some of them don't even realize that they're on their phones. It's like it's so ingrained in them. They're
Yeah,
completely sort of sucked in and they don't
yeah,
even realize anymore that they're doing it. That's seriously an addiction. And just like we have addiction centers for alcohol and drugs and all that, it's almost like in 10 years, you're going to see addiction centers for screens.
yeah,
No, because it's like it's serious. So a lot of the things,
yeah.
I've been sort of going on a rabbit hole and a lot of people on Reddit. And so it was funny because, these teenagers were like, I'm completely addicted to my phone. Like, I cannot stop. I can't stop. And some other kids were commenting, like, I know I've been there. Trust me, uninstall those apps on your phone. They were like, there is nothing better you can do for yourself. Just uninstall. But it was funny seeing them
They're
sort of
learning fast.
interact, yeah, because they even know that that's a problem, but it's very hard for them to stop. And so realizing too that that's a problem, just like you would realize with alcohol that it's a problem and put it away, try to do, entice help,
Yeah,
whatever you need to do. Because if you're constantly there, you're not in
you're
here.
feeding it. Yeah, and you're disassociating
You're completely
completely.
disconnected from this reality. And so I find, of course you don't know where to go because you're not here. You're somewhere
Yeah,
else. You're on your feeds. As much as, social media has had great positive effects, the fact that these kids are now addicted to it, I find is is terrible for them.
Yeah. So
And
it's
just
everything in moderation. That's really
totally.
across the board. And it does become an addiction when it controls your life.
Mhm.
S Oh, that's another great quote I love. Let me see if I can remember it. Where it's like, detachment is not you owning nothing. It's nothing owning you.
Mm.
So when something starts to own you, that could be anything, then you've really detached from yourself, and it's like you want to detach from that.
Yeah. If you're sort of stuck in this wheel of I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do, start with like one thing, no matter what. Just pick one thing. Something
Yeah,
that brings you joy or that you need to do. Just pick one. Because I think we're so we can become so paralyzed by, having too many things on our minds, too many things to do, too many ways that we could do it. So it's just sort of start with one thing. It doesn't matter what it is. On a small
yeah,
scale, I experienced this myself this morning because I knew I had to do some stuff. I knew I had to go grocery shopping, batch cook for the week. I wanted to like wash some stuff. So it's like, okay, now I was in my kitchen. I was like this, what to do, what to do. Too many things on my plate today. All right, I'm just going to start with one thing. Like this, the fastest, the quickest thing. And I did that. And after that, slowly things sort of
and you're
evolved.
just
And
yeah,
I found a pace.
yeah.
But it's like I could have also spent a lot of time just being like, oh my God, I don't know what to do.
Just being yeah, it's almost crippling or paralyzing when you're in that anxious state of, like, overwhelm,
Hmm.
right? Because you've got too many things going on. And the same thing, I felt that before too, and I've just adapted this, okay, it's all here, right? And it's just like, oh, pressure, pressure, pressure. I just got to get it down on paper.
Hmm.
So that way I just like can stop thinking about it and stressing about it. I put it down. I make a list of all the things that I want to accomplish or want to do or have to do. Then I
Hmm.
prioritize them, what needs to be done right away,
Right.
what can wait. And then I just start, like you said, take one thing and I just work on that one thing. When it's done, I cross it off so I feel accomplished. And then I pick the next thing. And then it's like that way I'm not in my head. I'm
Hmm.
actually doing something, but you just take it one moment at a time, one day at a time, one step at a time. I feel like we get like that a lot in life too, where you're just like, well, I want to do this and this and this, and it's way out there. And then we put ourselves in the future or we
Hmm.
put ourselves way off in this time space distance
Yeah.
and we're not grounded and centered. But it's like, well, you forget the 10 steps it takes to get there.
Hmm.
Put all this expectation that what I'm not there yet, I'm not there yet. Just take that one step and then eventually you'll be there without even realizing it, right? You'll be there
Hmm.
without even it'll come before you even know it because you've done all the little things to
Yeah.
get there. And then there's nothing that can happen that cannot make that manifest because you've done all the work to get it to manifest. Yeah, on the smaller
Right.
scales. Again, we overwhelm ourselves so easily. It's a Reiki concept. It's like the Reiki ideals
Hmm.
is one thing at a time, one day at a time, it's all like to could be back in the present, one breath at a time. So that's funny that you mentioned that. It's a esoteric model and ideal for a way of living.
But I
You're
find
such a
it's
Buddhist, right? You're such a sage.
no, but I find it's esoteric, but it's very practical too. Because if you are so focused, I'm thinking of along the realms of, Gen Z and all that. They were like, yeah, their purpose is like to save the world. And like, yo, that's too big. Of
Yeah,
course you're gonna get overwhelmed. You
of
can't just
course.
be, I'm born to save the world from climate change. Well, oh my God, that's a lot of pressure. Come back, come back. Present moment, come back to now, come back to the one thing. I feel
And then
like,
how are they gonna do that? By just being who they are and living in joy and spreading that energy. So it doesn't even we don't need to put that pressure on them. Again, they need to just come back to themselves
right,
and then it'll happen. So yeah.
that's it.
All right. All right. So I'm using my Shadowscape Tarot deck.
Yes.
I love it. And I'm just gonna shuffle right now in front of you guys and cut it. All right, so okay, the Knight of Swords. This is a very action-oriented card, but I think, honestly, I think this is the exact one I got last time. Maybe not. We'll have to go back and look at it. The Knight of Swords. Oh no, I think I got the Page of Swords last time. The Knight of Swords, swords being mental. Why do I get all these mental cards? But the mind. So cut through, like we just said earlier, cut through all that mind clutter, clear your mind, take action, not just keeping it bottled up in your head, because that can be overwhelming, that can add pressure, that can paralyze you. And the Knight is all about movement. So getting out of that perilous, overwhelmed state. A great way to do that is to clear the mind. We talked about making a list, but you could meditate, go outdoors, you can choose one thing to focus on that's not so stressful. And that's what I feel that card's saying.
Nice. Thank you for that. I also have swords. So I pulled from the Angel Wisdom Tarot, and they're just categorized a little bit differently. It doesn't say swords, it says air, but basically it's the king. It's the king of air, so the king of swords. And what this makes me think of is, so here it says remain objective and fair-minded. It speaks about communication and being emotionally unavailable. So in light of, the one next thing that you can do, I feel like it's just speak about what you're going through to someone. Just, I feel like you need to share it. I feel like it's sort of like the reverse position of the knight, of the king. And it really invites us to share with somebody, to get it out of our brains so much and out of our
Yeah.
minds, and to come back into our bodies and just share how
Yeah.
we feel and communicate. Maybe, this king of swords can use a little bit more emotionality, a little bit more cups in his life, and
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like
Being
we're
too
really,
strict.
yes, and maybe too strict with ourselves too. So anyway, I feel like this card is really just an invitation for the listeners to speak about what they're going through with somebody, whoever that may be. It could also be a journal, a diary, anything,
Yeah.
but just communicating how they're feeling. And maybe that would help them unburden themselves a little bit, and maybe make a clear path ahead look visible for them. So
I like that. Yeah. And it brings them back into their body, into
yeah,
the present, and not so much in their head.
there you
So
go.
I
Yes.
love it.